How are we all doing? Thank you for that. How are we all doing? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm not used to that kind of response. How are we all doing? Imagine that you're on the stage right now and you ask the audience that question. How would you want them to respond? How are you all doing? Oh, not bad, I suppose. It's really good to be here with you today and to share a little bit about my experiences, successes and challenges in building my Forever journey over the last 24 years. And it was a fantastic introduction for Marion. Thank you for that. But I do want to take you on a journey because you see me standing here as a diamond manager, an exec GLT member, built probably the second largest global business in the world with Forever. And it all sounds really glamorous and really amazing. But, in order to get to where we are today, we had to go on a journey. And there's always a starting point to any journey. And I know there'll be many people in this room today that are just starting out. And some of you, as I begin to unfold my journey, will begin to relate to it. And my wish for you is you relate to it and then you emulate me. Because I know that every one of you in this room, if you so choose, can do what I've done quicker, faster, bigger, and better. But the choice is down to you. And that's what life is all about. It's all about choices. So I want to take you back, if I can, to a very miserable time in my life. It was January in 1992. I was a single mum with 2 little boys. Can't believe you've just seen one of my little boys. Seems kind of weird to see him all grown up now and making his way in life, but I was a single mum with 2 wonderful little boys. And I was stressed. I'd gone through a really, really tough time in my life. I'd had 10 years of a marriage where I had pretty much every day mental abuse. Not physical abuse, but mental abuse. And mental abuse very often can be, it's tough. Day in, day out, when you realize that somebody thinks that of you and you begin to believe what they say. You begin to believe that you're worthless, useless, that you'll never amount to anything, you'll never achieve anything. And one morning I plucked up the courage to leave. And I remember at the time we were both farming, running a big farm estate in Norfolk. And he went off down the farm and I packed my bags, put the kids in the car and I left. And I look back now and I think, my goodness, that was a crazy thing to do, but was it? And I moved back up to Buckinghamshire where my parents lived, and I rented a little tiny house, and I started doing some farming for the local farmers, and it was tough. There was not much money coming in, and it was a tough, tough time. And I remember one morning coming in from the lambing sheds. I'd been lambing all night. And the kids were asleep, and I would keep dashing back to the house to check on them, making sure they were okay. I was lambing all night. I would come back, I would get them up, I would get them off to school, then I'd go and do the horses, and then I'd try and grab a couple of hours sleep before the kids come home, get them sorted, then back into the lambing sheds. And I was exhausted. There was no other word for it. I was exhausted. And I remember coming home that wet, miserable morning, and I came in, the kids were just about getting up, got them off to school, and I was so tired. When you're bone tired, it's an effort to even move. And I thought, I'm just going to make myself a cup of coffee, have a hot shower, then I'm going back to work. And the postman came. And he dropped 3-4 letters on the doormat. And it was in that moment that I had probably the darkest day I ever had to that point. And I remember picking up the post, looking at it, thinking, well, none of this looks particularly exciting. And I opened the first envelope, and it was an electricity bill for £80, and I didn't have £80. I opened up the second bill, and it was for the insurance on the car. And I looked out the window, and I thought, the car isn't even worth insuring. And I picked up the third one, and it made me angry. It was from the landlord, and he wanted to put the rent up on the property that I was renting. And this property was horrible. I always say it had hot and cold running walls, because when it got cold and damp, the walls would all get wet and mildewy. It was horrible. And he was putting the rent up by £100 a month. And I was like, how can this be? But it was the third letter. It was the fourth envelope that I opened that really had the biggest impact on me. And that was a letter from the school inviting the children to go on a school trip. And I looked at that letter and I knew that they couldn't go because I couldn't afford it. It was £110. We're not talking about a lot of money, but let me tell you, that's a lot of money if you haven't got it. And I put my head in my hands and I thought to myself, something has got to change. My kids were the only kids that didn't go on that school trip. And that hurt. That hurt more than anything. And isn't it interesting when you realize that something has to change? I call it a paradigm shift. When you mentally say to yourself, enough is enough. I will not accept this way of life anymore. I will not put up with it. I will not live a victim lifestyle. I want to be a victor, not a victim. I will not put up with what I had indoctrinated into my mind for the last 10 years. Something has got to change. But what? I mean, I'm just a farmer. That was what I was. I have to say I was a very good farmer, but I was just a farmer. And the challenge you have when you've only been in one career all your life is that there aren't many options open to you. And I was looking for something better. I wanted to be able to give my kids a great life. I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to be living day to day, hand to mouth. I didn't want any of that. But what was I going to do? I looked at going back to school, to restudy, to college, to become a vet. I really wanted to do that because I did all of my own veterinary work anyway to a point. But that was 7 years of study. 7 years of not being around for the kids. That was too high a price to pay. I looked at franchising. Now that is a pretty soulless business to be involved in. And also it didn't kind of make sense. You pay somebody a lot of money for the right to use their program, and then you pay them a percentage of your turnover every year as a royalty back to them. And then at the end of 20 years, the license runs out and you're left with nothing. Well, that didn't really make sense. And here's the other thing. I didn't have any money to invest in that anyway. I looked at traditional businesses and maybe setting something up, maybe like a farm shop or a corner shop. And that wasn't going to work either because once again, I needed a lot of money. And when I did my research on traditional business, it was obvious that there was no help, there was no support, there was a lot of competition, and nobody wanted to see you successful. And I reached that moment in my life where I thought, I don't know, maybe there isn't anything else. But then I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to decide today to embrace everything that comes my way, to keep my eyes open, to keep my ears to the ground, because I will not live like this anymore. Now, isn't it fascinating what happens when you decide to decide? When you say enough, I will not live a mediocre life anymore. It's amazing what happens. Within a few months, I met John. How lucky can one man be? And I tell him that all the time. And also, Forever found us. And it's really interesting how Forever found us. When I met John, he was a single dad with 2 kids. I was a single mum with 2 kids. We're now collectors between us. And he was also looking for an opportunity. He was in a very high-powered, stressful job. He was never with the kids. He had an au pair looking after his kids. He was in the office 7 in the morning, not home till 8 or 9 at night. No quality of life. He went through a bad divorce, lost everything because she took the lot. So we were both at this point where we wanted something different to do. And I guess one of the things I want to say here is it's incredible what happens when you change your mindset. When you say, I want to find something different, I want to do something different. It's amazing how the universe readjusts itself and people and opportunity come into your sphere of influence. And because you've put it out there, you're more receptive in the way that you respond to people. And I can remember quite clearly the phone call that we had from a friend, well, not really even a friend, a guy that we'd met twice before. And I remember him calling us up, and I remember two things. The first thing is he was massively excited on the phone. Now, I'd never heard him excited about anything, so that was interesting. Now, there's a tip for all of you. When you're talking to people, when you're engaging with people, are you excited? Does your energy shine through? Or are you almost apologetic for what you're presenting to somebody? But he was excited, and I was intrigued. And the other thing he said really caught my attention. He said, you know, Jayne, he said, it doesn't matter where you've come from to be successful in this company. It's where you want to go. And it doesn't cost a huge amount of money to get involved. Now, you can imagine how excited I was about that. All of my skills that I had learned to date were transferable. I didn't have to go and retrain. I didn't need a degree. I didn't need 100,000 to get started. I just needed a deep down willingness and a desire to make my life better than it was. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that moment when he called. We decided to get involved in Forever, and I must admit, I can remember that moment as if it were yesterday. It was August the 13th, 1993, at 12:25 precisely. How many people in this room think that August is a quiet month? You see, no one's going to put your hand up because they're going to say, no, I don't put my hand up. But we know typically, most people say August's a quiet month. Everybody's on holiday. Nobody wants to get involved. Everybody's got the kids on the beach. Let me tell you, I was recruited. A diamond manager was recruited in August. So make August a good month for you going forward, okay? It's always a cracking one because there's always somebody looking, but you also have to be seeking. So the journey begins, and these are some of the things I have now learned going from a brand new FBO to where I am today. And some of the things that I'm going to share with you, if you implement them, are really going to make a difference in where you want to go. So the first thing is, I can tell you now, when the journey begins, it's your journey. It's your business. It's your ID number. It's your goals. It's your vision. So you need to take complete responsibility for your business. Now, when we joined Forever in the UK back in August of 1993, there were no meetings, there were no trainings, there was no success day, there were no presentations, we didn't have a head office. All the products were packaged in the same packaging. So you know the nice yellow bottle of aloe? Well, the heat lotion, the propolis, the jelly, the moisturizing, they were all in yellow containers like that, which sometimes is very confusing. I never forget one night picking up the heat lotion. Well, I won't tell you where it went, but let me tell you something. It was not very comfortable. Read the pot first. But the point being is you have to take responsibility. And I very quickly learnt in the early days that responsibility is very simple. And one of the things I've noticed in today's age is people overcomplicate the whole process. They really do. We get paid for sharing the product, sharing the opportunity, recruiting people, and teaching them to do exactly the same. And if you're focused on lots and lots of other things other than those core principles, it's going to take you quite a long time to get to reach your goals and achieve what's important to you. I also learned very quickly that I had to change my thinking. You know, some of the principles and the disciplines and the processes I learned as a farmer were not going to serve me well in Forever. But what did serve me well in Forever was my tremendous work ethic. And I think this is a key word to write down. Those of you that are taking notes, brilliant. Those of you that aren't, you should have a pen and paper out. Because some of the things that I'm going to share with you, they could make the difference between you achieving your goals and not. So work ethic. I had a tremendous work ethic. I worked my business, even though I only had a few hours a week, I worked my business full time in those few hours. And in doing that, I learned very, very quickly in building my business that in order to achieve success, I had to also change the way I thought. And this will apply to pretty much everybody in this room, because I'm sure everybody in this room at some stage, or even right now, has had a job or has got a job. And one of the things that you have is a job mentality. And a job mentality is really interesting. We go to work for a boss, and they pay us what they believe we're worth. And in return, we do just enough to keep our jobs. And the income that they believe we're worth dictates our quality of life. Can anybody relate to that? So, for example, when I was farming, I was lucky if I was pulling in, on a good year. When I was farming before I left my husband, probably making about 23,000, 24,000 a year. When I'd left him and I was on my own as a single mum, I was literally being paid by the day. I was contracting out. But my mentality, my way of life, everything I did was dictated by the amount of money that somebody else paid me. And it does kind of mess with your mind, because you feel a bit resentful at the fact that you're working so hard for somebody else, but you're not getting the reward you deserve. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah? So what you have to do when you take responsibility to build your own business in Forever, you have to understand this is your business. You are no longer have a boss. And so you work the business in the way that you want to work it. You let go of the mentality of the fact that you're working for somebody else. This is now yours. So you're the boss. You look in the mirror. And the boss that's looking back at you is the best boss in the world. But you need to be accountable to yourself. You can't procrastinate. You can't put off. You've got to do. Because if you don't do, you don't get. So the one thing that became very evident as I began my journey was that I'm now an entrepreneur. I'm no longer someone that's employed on an hourly, daily, weekly basis by somebody else. I am an entrepreneur. And that's what each and every one of you are in this room. You are entrepreneurs. You have stepped out of the comfort zone. You are now in the adventure zone. And you are building something of value for yourself and for future generations. But in doing that, you have to learn some entrepreneurial skills. And these are some of the things that I've learned that have absolutely taken me from brand new FBO to Diamond Manager. And the first thing that I learned is you have to have a real passion for what you're doing. And I mean a deep down burning passion where you love what you're doing with a vengeance. If you don't truly believe in the company, the products, the industry, and yourself, you're never going to get to where you want to get to. And you've got to work in those areas. I remember very quickly completely absorbing myself in the story of Forever. I think Rex's story is inspirational, it's motivational, it's wonderful. I mean, how many people do you know that in 40 short years, starting with a dream, starting with an idea, have gone on to be in 150 countries with 2.8 billion turnover, to be one of the most excellent companies in the industry around the world? How many of you have really embraced that thought? In 40 years, that's been achieved from a standing start. He didn't inherit anything. He wasn't given anything. He came out of a job. He became an entrepreneur, and he created Forever. And that's what we have to do. We have to start thinking like an entrepreneur, and we have to create our own destiny. We're very privileged to do that under the umbrella of this incredible company, this incredible organization. You need to have a really big vision, a really, really big vision. And that vision starts initially locally. And I always say when you start your forever business, even when you start a brand new year, your strategy should be work locally, develop my community locally. These are the people that I can have instant access to, that I can influence quickly, that I can work with quickly, that I can build quickly. That will, from there, begin to grow nationally. And you'll begin to see businesses pop up in other corners of Ireland. And then, of course, because there are no limits, you need to have a vision of what you can achieve globally. Imagine a company that offers you multiple income streams. Multiple income streams. I want to just share something with you. This time last year, I was in Las Vegas. I had been invited to speak on the stage with Anthony Robbins, with Sir Richard Branson, with Eric Worre, and a whole host of other huge names in the industry. And at these big events, we're not allowed to say which company that we are part of because it's a generic event. But when you go into the green room at the back as a speaker, the speakers are all such hugely successful business builders, entrepreneurs in their own right. They're all wanting to know which company you're with. And many people would stand around me, say, which company are you with, Jayne? Because obviously I was the only Brit there. They're all American. And I would say, I'm with Forever Living. And I'd stand proud and put my shoulders back. Couldn't wear your pins or anything. And they would go, oh, that's the legacy company. That's the benchmark company. That's the company we all model ourselves on. And I want to share that with you because the pride that I felt when these other huge FBOs, and FBOs, not Forever Business, Forever distributors and other companies were talking about Forever like that. I hope you have that same sense of pride. I really, truly hope you have that same sense of pride. You are with, without doubt, the finest network marketing company in the world today. They're not perfect. Nobody is. But let me tell you something. They have nothing but your interests at heart. And it's only when you give yourself 100% to the company, to the product, to the opportunity, to your goals, to the legacy that you want to leave, the business that you want to build that will outlive you, will be there for your children and your children's children. It's only when you give yourself 100% to that that you truly begin to attract some amazing people into your sphere of influence. The other thing that you need to focus on is goals. Now, you've heard a little bit about goals today from Marcus, but I want to tell you something about goals. I believe there are two types of goals. There's a want goal and a need goal. And when you're sitting down with a brand new FBO, planning their businesses, this will serve you well. A nice little tip. Most people have never set any meaningful goals in their lives. We know that. It's a fact. And when you integrate and sit down with your new team members, you will know that for some of them, they struggle. There are many things that hold them back from allowing them to actually dream big. So if you look at goal setting in two simple areas, the first one is need. Well, for me, that was easy. I needed a couple of thousand a month to keep the roof over our head and live. But I wanted a beautiful home in the country. I needed to pay my bills every month. But I wanted to be financially free. You see, the need goals are really important. I need a new tumble dryer. I was working with a girl a few months ago, and that was her goal. She was a single mum, interior designer. She said, Jayne, I just need a tumble dryer. I'm going into winter. I don't want to put the clothes all over the radiators. The house gets damp. And here's the thing. We achieved that goal within 3 months. 3 months, she was able to buy her state-of-the-art £900 tumble dryer, cash. Can you imagine what happened to her belief? Can you imagine how she felt because she'd achieved a goal? The next goal was, I need a cleaner. I've got my kids at home. I'm busy working. I don't want to come home and clean the house. I want somebody else to do it. I said, great. How much is that going to cost? Well, cleaners are now £15 an hour. I said, great, let's go find it. And we put a plan together where she could have a cleaner for 2 hours every single week. It's £120 a month. And if you haven't got it, you haven't got it. She achieved it. Now imagine her belief when suddenly tumble dryer sorted, cleaner sorted, you know what? This works. What do I want? And so you've got to understand that goals is not just about on day one, the big house, the big car, the big check, the glamorous travel, the glamorous lifestyle. Because you look at it, you want it, but you don't believe it. I didn't. I didn't believe it on day one. I really didn't believe it. And one of the reasons I didn't believe it was because I had 10 years of crap being fed in here where I believed I was worthless. So as I began to build in Forever Living, and I began to get some belief and some confidence, and I could do this, I began to formulate a goal, a proper goal. The first one was I wanted to educate my kids privately. And the second one was I wanted to earn more in a month than my ex-husband earned in a year. Now, I'm a pretty driven woman. I've got a great work ethic. No one's going to stop me achieving my goal. And I was obsessed with it. Obsessed with it. Because when I left him, he said to me, Jayne, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never achieve anything. And I believed that. For 18 months, I lived a life of quiet desperation, hand to mouth, day to day, hour to hour. I believed it. Anybody seen the film Pretty Woman? I love it. When she walks into the boutique and they look her up and down and they ignore her. That's how I felt. And then just a few days later, she comes back in looking gorgeous and beautiful, loads of money dripping in it, and they bend over backwards. And she goes, big mistake, and walks out. Now, I had my big mistake moment. But I couldn't do it publicly. But I was so driven by the goal. I was so connected by the goal. My need goals were met, and I wanted my kids in private school. My entrepreneur mindset said, get to work. Do what you've got to do. Share the product, share the opportunity, recruit people, do the same, show them what to do. And I can remember as if it were yesterday, the month where my bonus check came in, and I went, holy cow. And that was the month that I made more in a month than my ex-husband made in a year. And I remember ringing up my accountant and going, I did it, I want to show him, I've got to send it to him. She said, Jayne, calm down. I said, why have I got to calm down? She said, you're now making considerably more than him, and he might come to you for maintenance. So I didn't quite have my moment, but I'm sure he knows. So you need to know what your goals are, what drive you, what get you up in the morning, what keep you up late at night, the thing that inspires you, that makes you emotional, the things that you connect with, the things that no matter what anybody says to you, you do not mind. You just stay focused. You're disciplined. You build your business every single day on purpose, which means that you don't procrastinate. Oh, this is such a killer, isn't it? Procrastination is the downfall of so many people in so many sectors in life. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. Oh, I don't want to go out tonight. And you put it off, and you put it off, and you put it off. And eventually, you don't move through the plan. You don't make much money. And here's what you do. You say, Forever Living doesn't work. It does. You haven't. So therefore, do not procrastinate. And I again learned that the hard way in the early days. I learned to take responsibility for all of my own actions. In other words, I had an upline. We didn't have much else going on in the UK. But I never, ever, ever depended upon my upline to help me become successful. Yes, it was nice to be able to chat to him. It was nice to be able to interact at times. But I took complete responsibility for my own business. And I think that that's something that everybody needs to do, to step into your own greatness, to step into your own belief patterns, to know that you are worthy and capable, to never let other people's opinions worry you in any way, shape, or form. And this was one of the hardest things I had to learn, was how to handle rejection. Rejection can debilitate you instantly. Rejection and people's opinions and that little two-letter word, no, can actually stop you achieving all that's important to you. And I know that each and every one of you in this room, whether you're a big, big player, whether you're someone who's been around for a long time or not, I know that every one of you will have been affected at some stage by the word no. So I'm going to give you a little story I want to share with you, then I'm going to show you how to handle it. Because this one tip here, I believe, will make a massive difference in your businesses. We lived in a little village when we started in Forever. There's probably about 300 people live there. It wasn't big, quite a tight-knit community. A bit like the communities you have here in Ireland. Kind of everyone knows each other. It's very friendly, very supportive. And I remember joining Forever. I got my box. I was so super excited about telling everybody I knew about this business, these products, because of course they were going to see what I saw, weren't they? Well, the very, 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 very first person I spoke to and went to see about Forever, I walked in, I put the box on the table. Here's a little trick for you. Write this one down. And I said nothing. I didn't refer to it. I didn't look at it. It was not there. We had a chat. We had a catch-up. And eventually she said, Jayne, what's in the box? I opened it up. She said, it's aloe vera. I said, yeah? Do you know about aloe? She said, oh, I'm in. I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, give me the papers. I'll sign up. I want to join right now. And I was like, this is a piece of cake. This is easy. I've got this one sorted. Well, she used to live in the States. She knew the power of aloe, but could never find it in the UK. Do you know that girl, Pam, is still with me today as a manager? Nice average business, all she ever wanted, because she loved aloe. This gave me confidence. I went around the village. I was speaking to all my friends, took the box in, eventually got to show them the products. They bought it. It was great. I was having such a good time. And then I went to see one of my friends called Fern. And Fern had a beautiful big farm, kids in private school, you know, the kind of thing that I wanted. I went into her house, sat down with her, didn't really mention the box. Eventually she said, what's in it? Opened it up, showed her the products, and she went, Jayne, these are amazing. And I was like, yeah, they are, aren't they? And I was super excited. She said, tell you what, leave the brochure with me. I'll have a word with my husband when he comes in tonight. We'll have a discussion, and then I'll call you up and place an order. I thought, cracked it. Perfect. I go home, I'm on cloud 9, absolutely buzzing with excitement. How many of you felt this? You can do anything, you can achieve anything, business rocks, everything's hunky-dory. Get up in the morning, get the boys ready to go to school, drop them off at school, come back, stop in the village shop for some milk. And my friend Janet said, Jayne, what have you done to Fern? I said, what? She said, yeah, she's been round all of us today telling us not to talk to you. I said, what? She said, yeah. She said, you've got this cult thing you're involved in and these products that, well, you know, clearly none of us really know anything about them. So, you know, what you're doing. Can you imagine how devastated I was? I went home, had gone to work, kids were at school, just about to go and do the horses. And I must admit, I had one of those moments where I shed a tear. I was physically wounded. That's how I felt. I felt struck to the very core that she could do that to me. Why would she not just say it to me? And in that moment, I nearly left Forever Living. I nearly left Forever. I thought to myself, I don't need this crap. I don't need somebody talking about me behind my back. Maybe she's right, maybe I'm wrong. I nearly left. And John came home that night. He clearly could see me distressed. The kids could see me distressed. We had a long chat about it, and he said, you know what, sweetheart? He said, you don't let people like her defeat you. You don't let them steal your dream. And then he said, come on, woman up. Put your big girl's pants on. Let's get back to work. I said, okay. So, fast forward 5 months later. 5 months later, I just achieved car plan. And this blue, sexy Mercedes arrived on the driveway. Oh my God, I'd never driven a car like that I'd never sat in one. You know, my car was a little bit of a rust bucket. It was an old Suzuki Jeep, sheep in the back, sheepdogs in the front, tack in the passenger seat. You know, if I wanted to move the window down, I'd pick up the handle, ram it on, wind it, and that was it. It was pretty bad, you know. So this blue Mercedes arrives on the drive, and for 2 days, all I did was just walk around it, sit in it, and press buttons. I didn't drive it. Anyway, John came home from work one evening. It was a beautiful summer's evening. He said, Jayne, get in the car. I said, why? He said, get in the car. So I said, okay. Kids were all playing. So I get in the car, and he drives out the drive. It glides, by the way. The smell of a new car. Tell you what, they need to bottle that. They need to make that a forever product. There you go. I'll put that forward. I got in the car. We drove out the gate, down the road. I was feeling pretty cool. And suddenly he indicates right. And my heart started beating. And I'm going, what are you doing? He turned into Fern's driveway. I said, what are you doing? He said, just be quiet. He drove down their long gravel drive. And there they were, the two of them, sat having a gin and tonic in the evening sun. And I'm going, please, no. And he came up round, pressed the button, put his head out, and he went, you're damn right it doesn't work. And we drove off. So here's the thing. Other people's opinions, their thoughts, their perceptions, their realities do not build your business for you. Imagine where I'd be today if I'd allowed her perception of who I am and what I do stop me. Imagine. So every single day you are going to encounter the word no, especially if you're building a business truly. Because if you haven't got many no's in a week, then that means you're not really building a business. Because you'll have more no's than yeses. But how do you turn a no into yes? Right, ready? I'm going to give you my secrets. The first thing is, this is about building relationships. This is not about a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. This is about genuinely believing that this opportunity can be a match for other people. So when somebody says no to me now, which they do every single day of every single week of every single month of every single year, I think people think just because you're a diamond that no one ever rejects you, no one ever laughs at you, no one ever says you're mad, no one ever says it won't work. Because I do exactly what you do every single day. I just probably am a little bit better at it because I've had a bit of practice. But I still get rejected when people say, no, it's not for me. And this is what I do. Ready? So I can see Bernie sitting in the audience there. So let's say I talk to Bernie. She says, no, Jayne, it's not, no, timing's not right. I say, hey, Bernie, no problem. I just called you out of the blue, so thank you for taking my call. However, I happen to believe that you could be outstanding in our company with your personality, your warmth, your people skills, your sense of humor, and your ambition. You could be outstanding. So I know the timing isn't right for you at the moment, but can I keep in touch? And you know what they say? They go, yeah. So in one sentence, I have turned a no into a yes. And what I do is I then say, look, we're going into Christmas now. I know you're going to be hectic socializing and with the kids and doing your stuff. Why don't I give you a call maybe end of the first week of Jan when the kids are back at school, just to update you what we're doing and where we're going and who's doing what. And she'll go, okay, in the diary. So my no has now become a yes. Now, you've got to understand the power of the compounding effect. So every no that says a yes, if you can turn at least 70 to 80% into a yes, you can keep in touch, yes, you can contact me again, that means normally within 12 weeks, you'll be calling back the first no. Within 12 weeks, your diary will be full every single day with the people that said no previously. Now, for those of you that have just realized the importance of what I just said, you are going to fly, and I mean fly, in 2018. Because that is the key to building an ongoing, warm market list of people that genuinely you will have a relationship with. And let me tell you how powerful it is. About the fourth person who said no to me in joining Forever, she didn't join Forever because the same day that I joined Forever, she invested £30,000 into a clothes shop. Quite rightly so, she couldn't distract herself from her commitment. 30,000. I spent 200 or 300 quid to get involved in Forever. Jackie said no to me for 7 years. 7 years. And I never gave up on her. And let me tell you a reason I never gave up. 2 reasons. Firstly, because I thought she was amazing. I said to her, Jackie, let's keep in touch. I think with your people skills, your warmth, your ambition, you'd be amazing. You've got to pay a compliment. You've got to make someone feel good. You really have. And so you just got to keep in touch with them. So I genuinely believe this business would be good for her. I was walking through John Lewis in Milton Keynes. I literally went round the corner and bumped into her. And before I could open my mouth, she said, "Don't ask me." I wasn't going to. She said, "The answer's yes." I went, "Really?" I said, "Jackie, 7 years." She said, "It doesn't matter. The answer's yes." She registered. She went manager. And she was my 25th manager, and I went diamond. Now, what kind of vision do you have for your future? You see, it's so easy to get distracted by somebody else's great idea, somebody else who goes off tracking forever and tries to convince you because they're not focused that you should go and do what they do. Whereas if you are focused on your goals, focused on understanding the compound effect of a no today is a yes. We don't know when it's going to be a yes, but genuinely, if you build that relationship, it will be a yes. I've got another girl who said no to me for 2 years, went on to be a senior manager, chairman's bonus leg, car plan, Eagle manager. Was she worth waiting for? And I'm honest with people. I would say, you know something, you're just worth waiting for. I'm not going to give up talking to you. You're special. So a no will always become a yes. So go back to everybody that said no to you. Reconnect with them. Ask if you can stay in touch and maybe after Christmas get some information to them or have a coffee. And if they say, "No, I don't think so," say, "That's fine. Let's keep in touch. Let me keep you updated. We've got some new products coming out." You have a reason to keep in touch with them. So as an entrepreneur, you need to learn to handle the word no. You also need to handle disappointment. My goodness. We are disappointed on many, many, many occasions. But that's life. That's business. The first time that someone doesn't turn up to a business presentation, I'll share a story with you about handling disappointment. This one's a really cool one. I'm going to run out of time in a minute. It's incredible how time goes when you're with friends. I remember I was a brand new manager. How many people in this room truly believe they've done their who do you know list properly? Written down every single name of every single person they've ever met in their entire life. I'm glad there's not one single hand gone up, because anyone that says yes, they know, have put everybody down, I will in 2 seconds show you that you haven't. And I'm going to prove it on myself. I just got manager. I was so full of it. I was so excited. I got this pin. I was strutting my stuff. And we had a little business presentation on a Wednesday night in Milton Keynes. I was there early. I blocked the whole front row out for my guests. Anyone relate to this? Because you've got 5 of them coming. And you're walking around, strutting your stuff. 10 to 8, the room's filling up, and you're thinking, "Oh, goodness, where's my guests?" 5 to 8, the room's nearly full, and all your seats are empty. And about 3 minutes to 8, you begin to go and take your business cards off and usher some other people to the front. And I was just about to do that, and in the back of the room walked in Sue. And when somebody walks in the room and you go, "What's she doing here? I didn't invite her." Anyone ever had that moment? Anyone experienced that? If you haven't, you're lucky. It was a massive lesson for me. Sue, I had not put on my list. Sue had a beautiful big stud farm. Her horses are renowned all around the world. She's got a name that is so big in the horse world. Her kids go to Stowe School. Her and her husband have each got big Shoguns. She's got a beautiful liveried horse box. Why did I not put her on my list? I prejudged her, didn't I? She doesn't need this. So you imagine my horror when not only she entered the room, but she walked straight up to me. "Hello, Jayne." It's like, all right. And she's got this little guy next to her. She said, "Isn't this exciting?" I went, "Yeah." She said, "Oh, this is Trevor." I went, "All right, Trevor." She said, "Do you know something?" She said, "I met him at a horse show a few weeks ago." Really? I'd known her since I was this big. "And do you know, Jayne, Trevor told me all about these products for the horses." She said, "They're amazing." "Yeah." She said, "And do you know what? He told me I could make an extra couple of thousand a month by working with this company. I went, really? Anyway, she sat down. She sat in one of my guests who didn't turn up chair. And she loved the entire meeting. And at the end of it, she registered there and then with Trevor, not me. And she went on to be a manager with Trevor, not me. She went on to be a manager. That was 24 years ago. 24 years at about £1,000 a month royalty. It's a lot of money, isn't it? It's about $250,000. $250,000 for not putting her on my list because I prejudged. Trevor, in the meantime, who met her at a show, has done very nicely, thank you. My point here is I was so disappointed. I was so grief-stricken with the fact that I had made a mess of this. But more importantly, she joined with someone she didn't even really know. That was a big lesson to learn. And I had to learn how to handle that. Ladies and gents, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have things happen that you didn't expect. And you're also going to have happy things happen that you didn't expect. But you've got to handle disappointment. You've got to pick yourself up. You've got to brush yourself off and you say, tomorrow's another day. That's what you've got to do. You need to understand that being an entrepreneur is not a part-time job. It's not a full-time job. Being an entrepreneur is a way of life. And that's what you all are now. You are all entrepreneurs. And with that in mind, you don't count the hours. You know, I hear so many people say, oh yeah, part-time, 10 hours a week. No. If you've got big goals and you've got big dreams, this needs to consume you. You don't count the hours. This is in your every single spare minute of every single day, and you work it relentlessly until you get to where you want to be. When the going gets tough, don't look for it to be any easier. Look for you to become better. That's what you need to do in building a business. So you never, ever count the hours. I just did it. I just did it. And I paid the price up front. I stopped going to clubs. I turned off the television. I stopped reading things. I stopped doing anything that wasn't moving me towards my goal because my goal was too important to me. And so with that, you need to realize the simplicity of the business. You need to realize that we use and retail a product. We don't do it ad hoc. We have a strategy. This is the business part of being an entrepreneur. What's your retailing strategy? How many customers do you want? What methods of retailing are you going to perfect until you become an expert in them? How many case credits a month will you use and retail? What's your repeat business like? How do you look after your consumers? How do you incentivize your consumers? Then we need to understand it's a sponsoring business. If we're not sponsoring people personally and helping that in the team, we're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're just a direct sales business. So what's your recruiting strategy? Which methods of marketing will you use? Will you perfect them until you become an expert in them? Will you have many fishing rods in the pond in order to hook the people that could be your potential managers' diamonds? I always say you should be working in 3 key areas of prospecting at any one time. You need to know how many people a day you need to speak to in order to achieve your goals. For us, it was very simple. We spoke to 5 people a day, every day, and we never missed. I'll tell you a story. One night, it was a cold, wet night. We'd been to the Milton Keynes meeting. We come back. It was about 11:30 at night. We both jumped into bed, pretty exhausted. We knew we had to be up at 5 in the morning. I looked at John. He looked at me. He said, what? I said, how many people have you spoken to? And he said, how many? And I said, how many? I said, we're 1 down. And he said, what? I said, you need to get up. He said, Jayne, it's 11:30 at night. Nevertheless, he got up, he got dressed, he got into the car, he drove all the way down to an all-night service station. He knocked on the door. He looked at the guy working behind the glass, who really didn't look as if he was interested in anything. He said, can I have a pint of milk, please? He bought a pint of milk, and then he engaged with him and talked a bit about Forever. And of course, the guy wasn't interested. It's not about the interest, it's about the commitment to your strategy. That means that we had spoken to our 5 people for that day. Now, what are you like with your business? Are you that committed with the way that you focus on building your business? Or are you always saying, it's a bit hard, I'm going to look for an easy route? You see, it's what you learn on the way. It's the person you become on the way that will determine where you are today and where you're going to go. Because what you do, you can teach. You can't teach theory. You can only teach the practical side of the business. So the results began to come. We went supervisor in 5 weeks, manager in 14 weeks. 7 years later, we were diamonds. But here's one of the things that I learned on the way, is that I also learned that I could really do this business. You see, there's a moment that you get into network marketing, but nothing happens until network marketing gets inside of you. I'm a proud professional networker. That's my chosen career. That's my chosen field that I want to put my energy and my time in. Not only because of what it can reward me, but the many lives that I can change through my experiences, both good and difficult. So I realized that through my own success, I could take people on a journey with me. And there are 3 stages an FBO goes through. The first stage they go through when you recruit them is they are dependent. They are dependent on you. They are dependent on you being able to teach them how to retail a product, teach them how to do 4-case credits, teach them how to make a call, teach them how to send a professional message to somebody, teach them how to run a BP, teach them how to do a testimonial, teach them how to duplicate, teach them how to do a planning. They're dependent on you. It's a bit like bringing up children. Then they begin to move through the plan. They begin to get a modicum of success, and they become what we call interdependent. They don't need you anymore to sell a product. They know how to do that. They don't need you to look after their customers with them. They can do that. They can do a phone call. They can do a one-to-one, but they may still need a bit of help with duplication. This interdependent stage is really vital, and this is where you need to put your time into the right people. And then there comes the moment where they become independent. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what is going to give you your legacy-style business, your long-term security. It's going to give you everything you want for you and your loved ones. So here's the thing with that process. Never change the cycle. The cycle is written in tablets of stone. But you can layer the cycle with your own skills, with your own creativity. You can make that cycle go as fast as you want. Somebody asked me the other day, Jayne, if you could do something different now as opposed to when you first joined, what would it be? And I would say to each and every one of you, this is what I would have done differently. I would not waste my time with time wasters. The amount of times that I've recruited 2 or 3 people in a month, and through my own lack of experience, one of those people was a potential superstar. And because they were a potential superstar, and because they got on with it, I just left them to get on with it. And I went to work with the person who I truly believed I could turn into a diamond, and they didn't even go to a BP. How many of you have done that? How many of you have worked with people that you genuinely know in your heart of hearts, they're never going to achieve much, but you're never going to give up on them? How many of you have done that? Right, let me give you these 2 words are going to change the way you build your business. Ready? Write them down. Ready? Okay? Stop it. Stop it. You need to put all your time into the person that genuinely wants to be a complete superstar. Because the person that hasn't got it in them will never have it in them. And I don't care how good you are, because I've tried, you're never going to make them more than they'll ever decide to be. So in other words, look for the best in them. And if they're going to be a good retailer, make them the best retailer. If they're going to be a supervisor but nothing else, make them the best supervisor in the world. But don't try and make them into a manager, a senior, a soaring, or a chairman's, because they're not going to do it. And while you're trying to do something that will never work, you're missing out on the person that needs that input. Does that make sense? So really understand when you're working with people that there are those that will and there are those that won't. And it's no good working with those that won't. So the most important thing is your key habits are know your stats. How many people a day are you talking to? How many a week? How many a month? How many a year? And then if you've done that for one whole year, at the end of that, you will see how many people you've recruited. So to give you some idea, in my first full year in Forever, I spoke to 1,658 people. That resulted in 502 secondary conversations, which resulted in 165 one-to-ones, which resulted in 33 people joining the business. You're probably thinking, Jayne, you spoke to over 1,500 people to get 33 people in your team that you recruited. Yeah. You're probably thinking, 1,500 to get 33 in. Wow, that's a lot of work. Yeah. But that made me my first £43,000 royalty income. Do you think it's worth it? And you know what's even more exciting? Is those initial people that joined and became managers, 6 of them in that first year, 5 of them have gone on to build multi-million-pound turnover businesses. Multi-million-pound turnover businesses. So do the activity. Don't turn off the noise. I don't know if you notice this here in Ireland, but in the UK, there's so much noise. Social media, Twitter, WhatsApp, emails, you name it, it's bombarding you every single day. And then what you do is you just think, I'll have a cup of coffee, I'll just scroll through my news feed. 1 hour later, all you're doing is killing yourself. You're nodding, aren't you? You've done this, haven't you? Okay, stop it. No more. And by the end of that 1 hour, you feel good because you've had a cup of coffee, but you want to slit your wrist because you think everybody else is doing better than you. Turn off the noise. And the latest thing that's bombarding everybody is the gurus. You know, the person who you see in your news feed that's going to make you a superstar because they are now a professional. They're an expert in their field of expertise. And they're going to sell you a course. They're going to get you to join their program. They're going to get you to enroll in their... You want to go and check some of these guys out. They've done diddly squat. They just learned how to market themselves on Facebook. Get away from it all. Put the blinkers on. Trust your decision. You decided to join Forever. It will never, ever fail you. 24 years, it's never failed me. It's stretched me. It's challenged me. It's frustrated me. It's made me cry. It's angered me at times. But I tell you something, the person that it's allowed me to become today, I feel truly blessed and grateful for. So in closing, I just want to share something with you. I had a bit of a surreal moment the other day. We live on a beautiful small estate in Monmouthshire. One of my dreams was to always buy my own farm. I've got 50-odd acres, and we've got a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful big barn on the property, and we're just having the most amazing extension built. But I let the land to a local farmer who has it full of sheep. And you can never take the farming out of the girl. I'm still a farmer at heart, and when we're lambing, get me in the lambing sheds for a night. I'm happy. I just don't want to do it for any longer than that. Because, you know, there's something beautiful about bringing new life into the world. It's a little bit like developing a new FBO. And I looked out the window and the sheep were out. And I pulled on my wellies, put on a sweatshirt, and I went running down the driveway to the gates at the end of the lawn. And just for a moment, I was absolutely transposed. I was transported back to those dark days where I had nothing. And at times couldn't even afford to feed the kids. And it just hit me like a wave of emotion. It's getting me emotional now. But it hit me like a wave of emotion. It took me back to those long nights farming, lambing, days and days of working throughout the day, being so tired I couldn't move, having no money. I very often didn't eat. The kids ate, but I didn't. Tough times. I opened the gate, the sheep ran back through, and suddenly I shook my head and I realized where I was, and I looked back up. And I looked back up at the house, and that was a wreck when I bought it. It was just a burnt-out wreck. And I looked back up at that property and I thought, because of my choices, because of my actions, because of being committed to the journey, because of never letting anybody else steal my dreams, because of being more committed to helping others than I was about my journey, I looked back up and I realized that I'd done that. I'd taken myself from a life of quiet desperation to living a life today that most people only ever dream of. And in that moment, I felt eternally grateful. And I leant on the fence. And I just had a smile with a tear because it was such an out-of-body experience. And I thought about my life now. And I thought about the people that I've been able to help. You see, I believe when you join an industry like this, priority number one is you. When you get involved in Forever, the first priority is you've got to look after you. You've got to get your home in order. You've got to get your bills paid, your mortgage paid, you're debt-free. You've got to get the kids sorted. You need to breathe. You just need to breathe. And then, once you've got that done, you've got to see how you can contribute to the greater being, the outside world. I wanted so much for my family, and I was able to do that, thank you to Rex's vision. But more importantly, the people I work with, I want them to have big smiles on their faces. I want them to be able to put their homes in order, to live a free life. And that isn't always about the big money, but that is about being able to sleep well at night and to get up in the morning with a smile on the face and have no worry. One of the things that we've been able to do is to start a charity in Malawi. And it started out as building a fresh water well to give water to children that were dying daily of cholera. You see, we take it for granted that we turn on a tap and fresh water comes out and we give a glass of water to our kids. And they're fine. But when I went to Malawi, they were drinking out of dirty rivers where animals were doing what they do in it. The tribeswomen were washing their clothes in it and kids were dying daily. And I was in Malawi once and I saw a little boy of 2 years old, the same age as my grandson, die for the sake of a 50p injection. And that's when I said, I've got to build a medical centre. So we built a medical centre. We built a corn mill and we built a school. And that's giving back. And those have been some of my most precious moments in Forever. So you've got to give back. If you've got to give back. But also, I drive a nice car. I remember saying to John, I need a new car. And he said, what do you want, sweetheart? I said, I don't know. He said, you can have whatever you want. I said, I want a Porsche 911 Carrera soft top. He said, okay, you kind of know what you want then. We went in to get it, test drove it. And of course, the guy said, how would you like to pay? He said, would you like me to sort out, some HP for you? I said, no, I'll just pay cash. He said, sorry? He said, yeah, here's my debit card. Just take it off there. Now, this is a 6-figure income car. He said, what? He said, I've never done this. I need to go and check with my boss if I can do it. I said, trust me, young man, you can do it. There's something quite nice drawing up at the traffic lights. You get this young rep in a car next to you. And why is it young men always want to have a race against a woman in a classy car? Why is it? Now, I like fast cars. I used to be the ladies' quad bike champion of the UK, so I don't mind anybody taking me on. Bring it on. We have a second home in the south of France. I never realized that I could ever have that. But to be able to take the family and friends down there and just relax and work from the poolside, to be able to pick up chairman's bonus of over 10 million in the years that we've been achieving it, but more importantly, to see so many of our team around the world pick up their chairman's bonus checks. We've got over 1 million people in our team now. Now, thank you. I want you to think about this. What would have happened if I had allowed Fern to steal my dream? You will all have these moments where someone will challenge you, and you might, if you're not careful, allow them to steal your dream. It's never, ever, ever, ever time to quit. You can have a bad hair day, you can walk away from the business for 24 hours, but you get right back on it, and you go and change the world. I was in Zimbabwe last year, and I've got a big team in Zimbabwe. And I went to the meeting, and this young gentleman came up to me called Peter. He said, "Hello, Madam Jayne, it's really nice to have you back again." And I said, "Peter, it's a pleasure to be with you." And he said, "Madam Jayne, I'm so excited." I said, "Why are you excited, my friend?" He said, "Well, you were here 6 months ago." He said, and I had such a big goal. He said, and I didn't want to tell you in case it didn't happen. He said, "But Jayne, it's happened." I said, "What is it, sweetheart?" He said, "I've got a fridge." I said, "You know what? I'm so happy for you." He said, "Yeah, I've got a fridge." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I have no electricity, but I have a fridge." And to them, that's massive. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, everything you do or don't do will be watched and copied. Every action has a result that will far exceed anything that you could ever think about. What we do is create a ripple effect. Your decisions will reach around Ireland, around Europe, and around the world. And one day, somebody in a home, in another country, will have their life changed beyond recognition because you said yes and because you stayed true to your goals. I want to wish you all great success in all you do. I want you to make sure that 2018 is the best year that you ever have. Because let me tell you, we celebrate 40 years of excellence next year in Forever. And we're not focused on the 40 years that have gone. We're focused on the next 40 years that are coming. And I wish you nothing but great success. Thank you very much.